For over 2,000 years, people have travelled all over the world and have documented what they saw and then told others back home about the incredible world. The famous Greek historian Herodotus wrote of 7 great and huge architectural achievements, and despite the writings not surviving about this, he planted the seed for the 7 wonders of the ancient world. Each of these buildings and structures were incredible achievements from ancient and classical civilisations, but there is today only one of these that still exists. But what happened to the other 6? Well, you would be surprised, because there's parts of these wonders that still today exist in some museums, and I've seen a few of them. The canonical wonders, as they are known, are the ones which most people know about and have been documented throughout history. These are the Great Pyramid of Giza, the Lighthouse of Alexandria, the Colossus of Rhodes, the Mausoleum of Halicarnassus, the Temple of Artemis, the statue of Zeus at Olympia, and the Hanging Gardens of Babylon. The one that still stands today is the Great Pyramid of Giza. It was built around 2570 BC, meaning it is well over 4,000 years old today. It was thought to have taken as long as 20 years to build, and took around 100,000 workers to finish and complete the pyramid. As with all of these style structures, the Great Pyramid was thought to have been built as a tomb, and a grand monument for the 4th dynasty Egyptian pharaoh named Khufu. He is best remembered for commissioning the Great Pyramid of Giza, but many other parts of his reign are not very well documented, and the only preserved portrait of him is a small ivory figure, meaning that his greatest and lasting work is the pyramid by far. It was built as a part of a complex of buildings that included temples and other pyramids. Now, the outer stones are highly polished white limestone, but these were loosened by earthquakes, and some were taken to build local towns. But when these outer stones were in place, it was believed that the pyramid could be seen from the moon, as it was so large. The 4 sides of the base are over 700 feet long, and are relatively exact, and each side of the pyramid is perfectly aligned, almost with the 4 points on a compass. Now, of course, you can still see this ancient wonder, which makes it very unique. The Lighthouse of Alexandria was built around 280 BC, and was destroyed by an earthquake in 1323 AD, meaning it stood for around 1500 years. It was found on the island of Pharos in the harbour of Alexandria, and it was built in 3 stages, all that sloped inwards. It was built from marble blocks using lead mortar, and the lowest part was a square, the next up was octagonal, and the top of the lighthouse was cylindrical. At the top was a curved mirror, which reflected sunlight during the day, and at night time it reflected fire to show ships they were getting close to the incredible city of Alexandria. It's claimed that sailors could see the light from up to 35 miles away, and it was so bright that when it shone on enemy ships, they would then catch fire. So it may have even been a weapon too. There were over 20 earthquakes in the years from its construction, and the most likely cause of its capitulation was the natural disasters. It was said to have been up to 118 metres tall. But back to the earthquake idea. It was known that around the year 900 that the structure had been significantly damaged because of one, but from the lighthouse we get the word pharos, the Roman word for lighthouse. Still today around the world there are many Roman pharoses that do exist. Now, the Colossus of Rhodes, as you can imagine, was absolutely huge. It was a massive statue to the sun god Helios, which sat on the island of Rhodes. The people built this around 294 BC, and they believed that they would be able to withstand any attack and sieges of the island with the statue's help and support, and that they would be victorious against their enemies. The Colossus was built from bronze and was reinforced with iron. It stood beside the harbour probably, and it didn't last long at all. In 226 BC, yet again another earthquake hit, and the statue with this fell over. The knees snapped, and it came crashing down onto land. Local oracles claimed that the statue fell because the people of Rhodes had offended the god Helios, who was depicted on it, and they then just left it there for over 800 years. It just sat there, and many travellers came from all around the world to see the statue just lying on its side. but eventually the parts of the statue were broken up and were then taken away, with the metal being carried away for use in other projects, or it may have even been taken by enemies as a trophy of war. It was around 33 metres high and really did live up to its name for being a colossus. The mausoleum at Halicarnassus was built in 352 BC. The monument was built as a tomb for the governor of the Persian Empire, Mausolus, and he was a very wealthy man. After his death, his widowed wife, Artemisia, well, I say widowed wife, she was actually also Mausolus' sister. Yep. Now he wanted to build a grand tomb and monument, so a huge mausoleum was built in his honour. Well-known Greek architects were drafted in to design the tomb, and sculptures were found on the four sides. The monument that was made was nearly square, and it stood at 14 stories tall, and the base was over 10,000 square feet big. The sides of the tomb had 9 columns, and the top was a stepped pyramid marked by 4 horse marble chariots. Now, the mausoleum stood for nearly 17 centuries before it was, yep, you guessed it, destroyed by an earthquake. There are parts of it that can be viewed today in museums, such as the British Museum, that depict the stone statues and some of the horses that were used in the building, and I've seen them. The Temple of Artemis was built around 550 BC, and it was destroyed in fire almost 200 years later. Right, finally a wonder that was not destroyed by an earthquake. The Temple of Artemis was constructed and built over many years, and the most famous was funded by King Croesus. It was a temple built from marble and decorated in gold. It was huge, and there were over 100 beautiful sculpted columns that supported the roof. It was twice the size of the Parthenon and was incredible. Inside were many works of art, and the most well-known was the statue of Artemis. It was said to have been made from gold, and Artemis's legs were covered with animals and bees. Now, as mentioned, it suffered damage many times and was rebuilt, and most infamously in 356 BC, a man named Herostratus set fire to it, causing the temple to be badly damaged. It was never rebuilt after this, and today only its foundations and fragmentary ruins remain. This is one of the wonders which can actually still technically be visited, and does in some capacity have some stones, albeit very few that can actually be seen. The statue of Zeus at Olympia was built in 430 BC and was destroyed in a fire in 426 AD. It was carved from ivory and saw the king of the gods Zeus sitting on a throne made from cedar wood. It was constructed by Greek sculptor Phidias, and in Zeus's right hand was a statue of the goddess of victory, and in his left was a large scepter with an eagle on top. The statue itself was around 40 feet tall and was said to have been so big that it filled one of the aisles at the Temple of Zeus, and the head almost scraped on the temple ceiling. In the year 426 AD, it was destroyed though. Some claim it was moved to the modern-day Istanbul, and was broken up decades later, but there have also been many copies of the statues that were made, but today none of them survive. Now, the Hanging Gardens of Babylon is the only ancient wonder out of the group whose existence is actually heavily debated. It was built around 600 BC and was allegedly destroyed by an earthquake in 266 BC. Now, whether the gardens existed or not, there are many accounts and descriptions of them. They were believed to be built by King Nebuchadnezzar II for his wife, as she was missing her gardens at home. Some have claimed that it was a series of rooftop gardens, and others say it was built within the walls of the royal palace. Babylon had no green spaces, as it was in the middle of the desert, and there is a huge amount of archaeology done in the region to prove whether the Hanging Gardens, existed or did not. Some excavations have claimed that there needed to be a brilliant irrigation system built, and a well in a vault may have been used along with a chain pump. Because if you have a garden, of course you need water. Some have claimed that the Hanging Gardens were not in Babylon, but instead were actually made on the eastern bank of the Tigris River. Now, it is up to debate whether the Hanging Gardens exist or not, and I'd love to hear what you think about this in the comments section below. This has been History of the World. If you've learned something new, click subscribe.